all the chapters that we covered so far. That include the introduction part of the database and the logical modeling, physical modeling, as well as the SQL and database programming. 50% half of them will be multiple choices. So you can select one of them. And the other 50% is the short description or the long answer. You can imagine what kind of a question I can ask, like the design, logical model, draw the ER diagram for a given the description. Okay? Or it can be physical modeling, relational database model. So we have learned from information we can make the ER diagram. So this can be one question, right? So using this one, you can convert it into relational schema diagram. This can be another big question. Also, using this one, you can finally build the database using what? SQL, data definition language and data manipulation language. For this, in relational database model, we learn relational algebra and relational algebra expression. Okay, so I think those are the order that we covered. Yes. Chapter 9, it was not included. What is the chapter 9? Yeah, definitely chapter 9 is part of, oh, I'm sorry. So chapter 9 is not here, so chapter 9 should be. Okay? All the chapter that we covered so far will be part of the midterm exam. And mostly, I got the lower score in multiple choice. I don't know. So please be careful when you study. You should understand the definition correctly. Okay, understand correctly. Even though you believe you understand, I know that some database stuff, but the question is question. Okay? I know, I understand that you know the most of the basic concept of database. I had 7 years of experience in the field, but that doesn't guarantee your score. So please study. That's different. Okay? But you know is different than what you get in the exam. So sometimes worst year, I got the average around the 30% for multiple choice. Random guess is 21 high. So please be careful. But that's not very complicated multiple choice. So you can understand if you study. If you took the whole classes in the classroom, pretty much I believe you can answer easily. And the other question is usually 3 or 4 questions. Each of them worth of the 10 to 15 point, okay, out of 100 in the midterm. So like I will give the description of the certain database, and why don't you draw ER or ER diagram? Or given ER diagram, why don't you map into the relational schema diagram? And why don't you make, for a given relational schema diagram, why don't you make the answer relational algebra expression, or even SQL part? Oh, especially for SQL, it will be based on the SQL 2 standard, which is the basic standard. Okay? So, which means I'm not going to add the new feature in SQL 3 or SQL 2003. So if you know the basic SQL part, I think you can easily answer. Also, my policy is simple. If I can copy and paste your answer to the SQL plus, if your answer is working, then you will get credit. Otherwise, no. So many of the students forget this one. Okay? So please. Also, sometimes you forget the comma or the left and right parentheses. Okay? Also, there are a bunch of different ways, not a bunch of, but several different ways of the timer or certain constraint. If your answer is working in the real database application, or is wrong. So that's the reason after I grade it, I will give you the chance to review your answer. Okay? So because I I cannot memorize all the standard. So sometimes the student bring this can be, yes, if that is working, then you will get it. Okay. Any question regarding to the mechanism? Yes, the total maximum point will be 100. Sometimes I try to give the bonus point. Okay, for those who have an extra time to solve the problem, then it will be added to your the score. So, yes. That will be considered. Okay. Like the certain specific function, like the decode or the decode for the worker right now it is. Yes.
The query that you run in the lab, that it was.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah, exam is here at the same time because the midterm does not provide any specific time slot. Okay. Any other question? Yes.
Can you give us a small example for algebra?
For example,
Yeah.
the difficulty level will be the same as the textbook. Okay? It will not be more difficult than the textbook. Okay? So you can find the virtual example from the exercise. I think it's a good idea to study with the exercise at the end of the chapter. Also, you can go to the website, but do not try to solve the very complicated problem with the 1,000 entity or the tables. Okay? And also, I'm not going to ask the code, programming code that we are going to learn today, database programming. Okay, don't have to, but you should know that it is a simple standard that we covered in the classroom as well as the lab. Calculator, you don't need a calculator. And cheating sheet, no, cheating sheet will be allowed. Usually, when I allow the cheating sheet, the average score is less than the other. I don't know. The students too much rely on the cheating sheet when they start. That's my experience. So I'm not going to allow. Okay. If you do not have any questions, this is the midterm. One more thing is, next week, any fun stuff?
Yes.
So this is the flyer for the curriculum skills that will be the coming Thursday, 1 week later. So I strongly suggest you to attend the curriculum skills. If you are around, you will. Okay, during the spring break, I try to give the extracurricular activity. So if you are around here, I like to attend. He's the Dr. Sumi Harold. He's from the University of Florida, major in the network, especially for the wireless network. So if you are interested in the those who are attending the lecture, I like to give the extra point. Okay.
Really?
It depends on how many of them. The extra point I have to give. Okay. Extra point, 1 point is the out of 100 in finite grade, not finite exam, which means it's quite big.
1%.
At least 1%. Okay. But the problem is, if I provide the extra point to such a thing, usually those who already got the higher point will take the extra point. Really. So please, those who are serious regarding to the final grade, please consider. Also, those who already got the good point or the good credential, please do it. Okay, so next topic is the database programming. It will be the last part of the database design. So after we complete the spring break and the midterm exam, we will talk about the special topics in the database, not database design, okay? Including file structure, indexing structure, and the query process, something like that. So suppose that we have database finally using the SQL and the data definition language, data manipulation language, we have the table in the database. In computer, what is the main purpose of the database that you design and implement? What is the purpose? Why do you create such a database? Read why? Store very large data. Also, we wanna retrieve the data. Slowly? No. Fast. Should be. Must be fast. Okay? So it's a kind of controversial. What kind of database is better? Reliable database or fast database? Both of them, yes. But sometimes it's kind of trade-off. But if I need to select one of them, I'm the person who select the best database. Okay? Because that is one of the main purpose why we are using the database. If your database is slow to access the data, just throw away. Think about other data structure. Even sometimes without database, sometimes the new kinds of database, like the NoSQL database in big data system. Okay? We are too much stick on the reliable database. That is because nobody wants responsible for the data one system. If we lose something data in the IT system, who will be the responsible? If you purchase very expensive EMS, then the vendor will be responsible. Because I pay whether or not this system is good or reliable. It's the money. But as a researcher or the instructor of the database, I like to go for fast database. That means there's a user or application or any other computer or even sometimes the database need to access such a thing. What is the way? Which way can you access such a database that you need? Program language? What kind of program language? Any program language can access your data? No, only SQL can access the data. That's what we learned in database modeling. Database modeling provides operation. That operation, the relational algebra expression and relational calculus, is implemented as the SQL. That is the only way to access the relational database. No other way. Okay? So, good news is, as long as you know how to use the SQL, that's it. The problem is, SQL is not very flexible language. Did you learn the SQL in the exercise lab? It's simple, everybody can understand. There's a benefit, there's the advantage, but problem is, if I ask you the very fancy, nice application like the graphical user interface to access data, can you do that? No. Using SQL, there's no way. Because SQL is a structured language. Only to access the data structured by the relational model. That's it. There's no way to make a form. There's no way to make the fancy, nice stuff. Also, does it provide any procedural part, like the if then else or procedure in case of something? No. It's the select from where, non-procedural language. If you have a very complicated procedure, yes, there's a way PL/SQL. So the procedure, this is in addition to the SQL, but it's still in the server side, not application side. It's a very limited function to provide procedural part. So that is the disadvantage. So to address that problem, we need to get the help of other program language. Sometimes it's called a host language. Sometimes it's called a program language, such as C program, C++ program, PLC, not PLC, PHP, Java, .NET, ASP.NET, ASP, and JSP, any other language. Okay? So we need the help of such a host other program language, and plus not easy. Okay? You should know not only SQL, what SQL is, but also you should understand, you should know how to use the host language, programming language. Unfortunately, in this class, we cannot cover this part. Okay? But I'd like to explain, I'd like to let you know what is the main concept of integration SQL with host language. Because she's the expertise on the Java, but he can use only the PHP. So even I do not know some of the languages I never use. But if you understand such a basic architecture, the basic concept of database programming, it's not big deal to catch it. Okay? So what is this such an example? That is a database language. Is it easy to integrate this one? Not simple. One. Their data structure are different. Okay, like the oil and water. So do you think oil and water can be mixed together? No, never, ever, because they are entirely different elements. It's the same. In terms of data structure, they are different. Different mechanism, different data structure. For example, how does SQL consider the data? Set, group of data. Why? On the other hand, other host languages, data as it is. Okay? That's a totally different. That makes it different to access the data. In SQL, how can you access the data? If you submit the SQL language, it will return group of data, relation. Output of relational expression is a relation, which means group of data. So, as you have learned in PL/SQL, you can define cursor. It's a temporary area. Then you need to fetch, get one by one. That's the way of accessing in SQL. Why? First language is data as it is, not a group. That makes the difference. That is called impedance mismatch. Because of that, there are alternative ways to access the data from other programming languages, like the component, or it's called the LINQ, especially in Microsoft product, they provide a lot of ways to hide actually abstract SQL part. Instead, you can make the sometimes library to access the data. You can make the component to access the data. You can make something other, then call this library, call this object, call this the component. Then, even though you do not know the inside of this, you can access the data. That doesn't mean you throw away SQL part. No, it's just hide the difficulty of the SQL part. One of my friends, he's working for the oil industry. Actually, his company developed the software to analyze the data extracted from drill to find the oil, the Gulf Coast. Okay, so that drill is very, very expensive. And also, accuracy level is like the 15 to 20%, which means if you 1 out of 5 only successful to get the oil from the ocean. Okay? So they need to investigate, analyze the data generated from the drill part. There are a lot of sensors. Drill is not the small one, huge drill. Okay? So his database is very, they purchased the database part. So he knows the database, SQL part itself, but in case something problem to access the data, sometimes he opened the one object, there's nothing there. So high. Open another object sometimes 7 to 10. That object, this object is called another object, another object, another object, another object. Finally, he can find the SQL part here. Wow. Because they hide So one company purchased this part, another company purchased this part, another company, then application. Because they using this one, so in case something problem, or they sometimes cannot find. And even very hard. Their naming rule and the library are very low level, so it's very hard. But if there's no problem, if there's unless there's a problem, it's okay from the application. Okay, that is the database programming. We will see some example programs today. Okay. So, database host language is an incomplete list of the host language. Java, C, C#, Cobol, and some other programming languages. So you need to decide in your project A4 what program language you are going to use. Because some of them is like .NET, while the others Java, PHP is also ASP. So nowadays Node.js is the script language that can be used. It's totally able to. And database part only SQL. So you need to combine both of them. So we can classify the database programming approach by 3 or sometimes more than that. But roughly 3. First one is embedded command. Embedded command means, for example, the C program. In the C program, I'd like to make the average. Okay? Average of the vitamins for all my students. So, the main program, so you need to define, okay, integer, the square, so array, okay? So you need to specify the 10 point, 20 point, 10 point, 11 point, and so on. Then in your for I equal 1, 0 to 10, 9, and some square I plus the sum. Then print. So just programming. Okay. What if you are using the database for this point? So, this is a pure C program instead of this. In database, you can select the score, midterm score from grade, where instructor is lead. Okay, something like that. Okay, then this one plugged in, embed into the program here. Instead of define your variable in the memory, okay? So what happened actually, by the way, if you define the variable in your program, when this is executed in the memory, there is something area. So that is the reason it's a memory-based approach. When you read the paper that mentions the memory-based, that means in your programming you are going to deal with all the data. But if you are using the database, you need to access the data, then get return. So that part should be included in the host language. So the black part is the host language part. And this one is the database. This is called the embedded part. So we need to differentiate embedded part. How can? Here is EXEC, C for begin. And EXEC, C for end. So whenever you see this one, that means it's the SQL part, embedded part. Then plug in this into here, then we can use the data stored in the database. This is an embedded approach. The second approach is, even this one is complicated. Why don't we make the C library, shared library, okay? That access the database first, then call the function. So for example, I create a function, the shared function like the access midterm, something like that. You create such a function that inside your C program, host language you can call. That is called the library of database function. So you can create the library. Then, third one is, as you learned in the last week, it's a stored procedure language like a PIC. That part, such as accessing the midterm exam score, is already implemented in the server side as a PIC as a function. So in your programming, you can just call such a function. So these are the main approach in database programming. Okay? So for example, ProC. Pro means it's used in Oracle. So in addition to the C host language, they provide the embedded SQL part. That is called the ProC. Or ProCobol means embedded COBOL. Anyone who ever used the COBOL language, then I think it's easy to get a job nowadays. Why? It's a very old-fashioned.
It's amazing.
That means rarely used. Very hard to find someone who knows the COBOL. COBOL still used for the working system, okay? Especially in the financial sector. Okay? So it's one way. Like many of students, actually those who want to get a job, they learn the new language, new environment, new stuff. That caused it's very hard to find a person who knows the old fashion. So COBOL is one. COBOL is very reliable program. I learned the COBOL, or Fortran also. Fortran still used in the market. And Java, SQL today, so you can embed the SQL part into each program language. API based is a library based. So library is already created. You can just call that library to access the data, PSQL that you learn. Okay. This is an example of the embedded SQL. Okay. Let's see the example later. Okay. So this, this slide shows the comparison in the Microsoft MS product. So there are different kinds of packages. OCI is called Oracle Core Interface. It's a low-level program, very low-level program language in Oracle, such as assembly language in the computer. Assembly is a machine language, so if you can code directly the assembly language, you can do that, but nobody did. Usually you use compiler, okay? That convert the high-level language into the assembly language. Similarly, Oracle actually developed based on the such as Oracle Core Interface library. So then you, on top, based on that OCI, the package, they develop the SQL or other application. So usually, two or three times faster than the other Oracle application if you are using the OCI, which is actually based on the C. Actually, believe it or not, the Oracle is developed based on the C language first time. So 80% of the Oracle product is coded by the C language, the others are assembly language. So, C. And ODBC is the, you know the ODBC? So Open Database Connectivity. Who developed that one? Microsoft. The beginning of the database era, the Microsoft product provide the ODBC package. So first, to access the data from Microsoft product, you need to define such a ODBC the component. Okay, so this one is the A Oracle. So UB Oracle. Then you need to set up all the configuration to access the data in an Oracle database. Then in your programming, you can call that ODBC library. Then it's followed by the ADO.NET. So it's a .NET platform. So you will probably use the ADO.NET. And JDBC is for Java, like the ODBC in the Microsoft product. So JDBC, what is the Java? What is the slogan of Java when it was the first?
Compile and debug everywhere.
But it's a compile once, then execute everywhere. But as he mentioned, it's a debugging everywhere. Anyway, it's open source the programming, but right now, Oracle is the owner of the Java, unfortunately. Okay. So at the time, even though we have the database standard, SQL 2, SQL 3 standard, we have Oracle database, Informatics database, others, DB2 database, and SQL Server. Even though they are sharing common standard, each of them has at least 20 to 30% different feature. Their syntax are slightly different. Okay? Even though they follow the standard. On purpose, they make such a difference. Otherwise, if they are the same, nobody wants to use different systems. So at that time, Java is compile once, run everywhere, but each one has different DBMS. To address that problem, even Java group provide the library, Java library, okay, to connect the database and access the data and execute the SQL. Okay, so if you include such a DBC library, then you can. Even though you do not know the specific feature of Oracle Informatics DB2, you can connect and access the data. That is the JDBC. Sometimes each vendor, Oracle provide their own JDBC library, or DB2 provide their own JDBC library. You can use either of them. If you want specific feature of vendor, so you'd better use the vendor-based JDBC. Otherwise, the common JDBC library is okay. However, right now, they are the same family. That's the problem. Okay. So any of the database programming require connection and end connection. Because DBMS has their own authentication. In other words, username and password that you use. Okay? Because this is the database software running on operating system. There are two ways for authentication. One is you can use operating system authentication. That's one way. But many people believe this is not secure because database is one of software. If they allow all users who verify based on operating system, like there's an operating system user for MS Word. But if they are passed, authorized, they can access the data. So that's not fair. It's not safe. So DBMS database provide their own authentication, so like the Oracle username and password that you have, that you are using. Because of that, whenever you access the data from the database programming, you need to connect, open database connection and close, terminate. Here's the database program session. Otherwise, sometimes if you do not terminate, do not close successfully, your changed data will not be applied, which means not coming. it will be legal. We will see the details of such a transaction control later. So embedded SQL first the one. Whenever you need to access the database, it's based on the SQL block. EX is SQL, EX is SQL begin, and end with EX is SQL end or and EX is. Then you can put all the SQL part between them, like this. So integer, whatever, this is supposed to vary, like the C programming together. So I need to access the data to over here. How operating the host language get the data from the EXEC block? You should have the common variable. So for this, first you need to declare such a common variable between EXEC block and host language. For example, here ename, fname, ssn, vdate, something like that. Then we will use this variable in the SQL part. So select first name, last name, address, and salary into. This is an additional feature in database programming. Then fname, lname, address, salary. This variable will be located in your process in the memory somewhere in your process. Okay, memory. And shared by the host language. At that time, to differentiate such a variable, so you need to use colon. Okay. And finally, in your programming part, you can access the access data using fname, lname, address, something like that. Before I forgot, what is the difference? It was homework, right? Even though I did not ask you, I didn't ask you to write down the difference. Anyone? What is the difference between variable character and variable character 2? I will give the extra point to those who answer correctly. Yes.
Do more capacity or bits.
How much? You didn't research. 8 bytes? 8 bit? 8 bit is I think too small. Even cannot represent my name.
Double the original space.
Double? So, anyone? Nobody research. And there was someone who will try to find right now. What thousand? Use the chance to get the extra point. Variable character first was the original data type when in the sequence number. Then probably the middle of the 90 before 2000, the Oracle actually decided to create their own character type. Why? Because variable character itself is too small. So we need the 2001. Also, their data type, physical data type, according to the 3-scheme architecture, how many different? 3. What did I say? 3-scheme architecture. What is the top? External view, conceptual view, and internal view. Internal view you don't have to worry about, but DBMS vendor should worry about such an internal view, internal structure, how to store the data inside your DBMS. So there is a standard to store the data, but original structure was not very efficient. Okay? And also waste of space. So they decide to use variable character too. They cannot replace the original. Brother cannot replace variable character by the new one. Why? Because it's a standard still. So this one provides bigger size up to 4,000 character. Also different the internal data structure that can be more efficient, fast, and the more reliable data structure. That is a variable character too. But most of the users love this one rather than variable character. Then eventually all DBMS use variable character. Nowadays, not difference between variable character and accessing. Not much different. Even other DBMS adapt such an idea. So in New York, the coming standard, they will use variable character for variable character 2. Then this one will be used for future use. And actually, answer is nothing different right now. This is the history of variable character. So right now you can use either variable character 2 or variable character in your program. There's not much difference. But eventually, variable character will replace the variable character 2, and 2 will be used for future use. Okay, that is the variable character. So, in the embedded, as you have learned in the PLC program, there are different ways of accessing the data in the so the procedure. One way is you can define the cursor. What is the cursor, by the way? Did you have to practice cursor, of course? There's another way to access the data in PLC program.
Like pointer?
Now, pointer is kind of array. It's a kind of pointer. It's a kind of room. It's a temporary room in memory. Why? As we have learned many times, database, relational database is based on relation set. It's a group of data. We cannot access data by data, no way. Row by row, no way. Only group of data. So to bridge the gap, it's a set, it's a data. So in between, we define the cursor. Cursor is kind of iterator, it's a repeated. So you can regard the cursor as a temporary root. So I select the student name from student table. Then student data will be one student. Next student. So 10 students will be returned at one time in this room, cursor. Then in your application you can fetch, access one by one, row by row, as you are accessing data in your program, like the array or point or line. Okay? So cursor is kind of a room. Then you can fetch. Who will see the example? I think the example is in the practice, in your exercise lab here. Okay, that is the, let me see whether the fetch is not here. I thought it was here. Anyway, so that is the cursor-based accessing the data. There is another important thing when you implement the database programming that is called the dynamic SQL, which means there is a static SQL. First, what is a static SQL? Static SQL means when you embed this is the example of the static SQL. It's a fixed. Okay, select the score from grade where instructor name is read. This is code compile running. This is a static SQL. What if in your program language, in your program, one of the benefits or one of the reasons of using database programming, like including the host language, is a graphical user interface. So I can select the instructor name, lead, and the dictator, and Mahmoud, something like that. So based on the input, SQL will be different, right? You need to change the variable. Even, for example, this is one condition, second condition is the major. So there is a CS, CE, and major, many different cases? You need to implement 6 different cases, right? Select from where Li and the C. Li and CS, dictator CS, dictator C, mount CS, mount C. But if you have more options, so it's not convenient for you. Instead, we can implement the SQL part dynamically change based on what? Condition. So in dynamic SQL, we can actually create SQL part based on what? Input or condition. So most of database programming is based on dynamic SQL. For example, we define where the variable for SQL statement, then assembly. So for example, we get the option for SQL statement and eventually build the SQL string. So in your programming, database programming, based on the input, if you just select the lead, add this part. And select the measure at once, the measure is selected, add this one. So you can assemble eventually the SQL statement that is called the dynamic SQL. You will practice in your exercise lab. Java, it's the same approach. Instead, you need to use the library. So in this case, that's called sometimes driver, or the Java library, Java classes. Okay, you should include that. Then, the syntax are common, very easy, straightforward. Also, you can use the JSP. This is embedded SQL in Java. So you can embed SQL part to represent the embedded part. If you use the sharp SQL and just plug it, and the others are the same approach. I'm going to skip the pro interface now. The last one is the sort procedure. Oh, before we move to the sort procedure, this one. In case of embedded, what is the difference between embedded approach and library approach? Library, you don't have to compile it. It's already compiled. Like as a shared library or a Java library, classified. Okay? You don't have to compile, you can just call the method. That's it. On the other hand, embedded SQL, if you compile this one as the CC or GCC, can you compile it? Yes? No. C compiler does not understand the EXEC word. That means it's a bunch of errors. Okay? So, before you compile your database programming, embedded programming with the host language compiler, you need to compile this part. It's called the pre-compiler. Pre-compiler, actually not compiler. Pre-compiler is kind of mapping the EXEC SQL part into C language function. So very, very low level, nobody understands actually that code. But if you want, you can do that as if you are trying to understand assembly language. Okay? But it's a very low level. So you need to pre-compile first and post-compile. So two-step compile and embedded. However, library-based approach is already compiled. It provides a library or classes, so you don't have to compile again. Just call, after you compile, you can call that library. That is the embedded approach. So database sort procedure is reside on server side. Unlike the other approach, it will reside on the server side as a format of the sort procedure. Okay? Oracle calls such a procedure as a PSQL, or the informatics called the PSM, and each DBMS has their own the sort procedure. Unfortunately, there is no standard. So that means if you even though you know about the Oracle stored procedure, that's different from Informix stored procedure. So you need to study that. It's not much different, but it's different. So, such as stored procedure, there are two types of the stored procedure. One is a function, the other one is procedure. What is the main difference between them? Function,
Function in terms of the
return, procedure is procedure. Okay? Then, based on that, there are various of the stored procedure, including trigger and the I forgot the name of that. There is a set of procedure. Not module. I will let you know maybe next class. No. Package. So in Oracle there is a package. Package is a group of procedures. Sometimes I have the student procedure